For those of you we haven't met yet, EnerKnol is an energy information company based here in New York. We provide energy policy research and data to all sectors of the energy industry. We launched New York Energy Week last year to stimulate collaboration and investment among the often fragmented and siloed energy industry. Last year, in our inaugural year, we had nearly 2,000 participants, and this year we expect double that number across the 12 headline events and the 20 affiliate events going on this week. New York Energy Week is actually more than just 5 days out of the year. It is a year-round collaborative initiative that would not be possible without many of the leaders here in this room. I would first like to thank our founding partner, NYSERDA, our brand partner, the Energy Agency, this year's Terawatt sponsors, Breitling Energy and Con Edison, our gigawatt sponsors who are very well represented at today's event, the Consulate General of the Netherlands and Alliander. And I would also like to thank our board of directors, especially Kristin Barbato, who is moderating today's panel, our steering committee, especially Jeff Kendall, who served as today's event chair, and our esteemed panelists. Finally, I would like to thank our hosts for the morning, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, especially Kristin Weydig and Brian Chang. And on behalf of all of us here, thank you all for joining.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks to EnerKnol for putting this event together and all of the events this week. And thanks, of course, to our esteemed panelists and moderator for their time today and their insight. I'm sure we're going to have a lively and informative dialogue. We build, own, operate, and maintain transportation infrastructure critical to the New York and New Jersey region. We don't take tax dollars, we generate our own revenue. We operate the busiest airport system in the US, marine terminals and ports, the PATH rail system, 6 bridges and tunnels connecting New York and New Jersey, the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan, and the World Trade Center. These are far-flung facilities. They straddle multiple utility service territories. There are different transmission operators that we deal with, different energy markets, different energy policy environments, and different incentive regimes, which can be challenging to manage. In March of 2008, the Port Authority Board expanded our environmental policy to include a sustainability component. The intent of this sustainability component was to address global warming and give the Port Authority an opportunity to have an aggressive position on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in the region. Our targets are consistent with those of the International Panel on Climate Change. So those are to reduce by 80% our greenhouse gas emissions based on 2006 levels by 2050. Most of these reductions are going to come from new capital investment and from changes in operations. Instrumental to our carbon reduction strategy are energy efficiency programs, and we undertake energy efficiency programs in a variety of ways, including through programs offered by our utilities like the New York Power Authority and PSEMG. But we've also contracted with 4 private energy service companies using a performance contracting model. These 4 ESCOs that we use enable us to have access to third-party financing should that be necessary, which enables our program to be viable even if there aren't internal funds to pay for these projects. Currently in this portfolio, we have 4 projects that are in construction. We have 1 project that's going to our board for approval this month, and we have 2 more that are in audit phase. Altogether, these projects represent $80 million in energy improvements, and we expect them to yield about 20% reductions across all fuels based on building baselines. We have had the opportunity to do some innovative measures through these programs, including installing LED lighting at the Lincoln Tunnel, making it among the first U.S. transit tunnels in the U.S. to have done so. We've also installed smart LEDs at Newark Airport, and these smart LEDs include security cameras that share the LED's power source as well as its built-in computing capability, which offers us enhanced features to do energy management, but then also it enables us to transmit video footage via wireless or cellular networks. And this represents a tremendous savings to the Port Authority because then we don't have to run independent electrical conduit and communications to these security systems. So we're really excited about that. We're actually in the design phase for implementing these smart LEDs at our tunnels, bridges, and terminals facilities. And at these locations, it would enable us to do enhanced traffic control and maintenance, to respond more quickly to accidents and other events, to identify potential threats, and also to enhance our suicide prevention measures. In order to glean better building usage data to, in large part, help prioritize energy efficiency projects and measure their impact, we are embarking on an ambitious advanced metering infrastructure program. We're doing this with the assistance of the New York Power Authority. And through this $56 million program, we'll install smart meters that have two-way communications capabilities to get us nearly real-time usage data, which will be helpful in supporting a number of our energy programs. And we believe this program actually will establish us as among the first governmental entities in New York State to have installed a comprehensive smart submetering program. Over 1,500 utility meters will be upgraded in this initiative. Earlier in 2014, our board approved the purchase of 200 green vehicles. This brings to 85% the number of alternative fuel vehicles that the Port Authority has in its fleet, establishing us as third greenest in a survey of federal, state, and local agencies. So that's an achievement that we're quite proud of. We also are supporting the build-out of electric vehicle charging infrastructure at our facilities for public use. We've installed 10 electric vehicle charging stations at JFK and LaGuardia airports, and we're in design to install additional chargers at the Port Authority bus terminal in partnership with the New York Power Authority. As Erin mentioned, the Port Authority does participate in the multi-state zero emissions vehicle program. We're on the implementation task force for that program. In October 2013, the governors of 8 states, including New York, signed a memorandum of understanding committing to having those 3.3 million vehicles on the roadways by 2025. One of the challenges that we've encountered as we look to support the build-out of electric vehicle charging infrastructure is how to accommodate taxi fleets. We have thousands of taxis that go into and out of our facilities on a daily basis, and providing the right charging technology in the right locations at our facilities for this large-scale charging effort would be a tremendous challenge, and we're concerned about the impact that that would have on our utility electric bill in terms of demand charges. So quantifying that and figuring out how to recover those costs is something that we're struggling with now, and we feel that all of the stakeholders that are engaging on the effort to increase electric vehicle market penetration need to focus on such issues, even though they might be more specific to an urban environment and not as prevalent statewide. As the owner and operator of critical infrastructure in the region, infrastructure that's vulnerable from a natural perspective insofar as we're in a coastal environment and a lot of our facilities are in floodplains, and the man-made vulnerabilities because we're in a population-dense area and a financial hub that has been previously targeted by some nefarious elements. The Port Authority is increasingly focusing on energy security and resiliency. Port Authority and its tenants and patrons are acutely affected by grid events. Outages impair the Port Authority's ability to keep the traveling public mobile, to move goods and services, and to generate revenue. As an example, after Hurricane Sandy, JFK suffered some impacts and 500,000 people couldn't depart from the airport. The financial impact on the region was approximately $264 million. The direct financial impact to the airport, including necessary repairs, was about $47 million. So this is something that we're definitely paying attention to. Enhancing energy security and resiliency really requires us to evaluate our vulnerabilities, to identify the infrastructure that needs to be hardened, to identify the level of system reconfigurability we have at our facilities, and to establish special operating procedures. One of the challenges we've encountered in this process is the availability of detailed data from our utilities in terms of grid vulnerabilities that affect our facilities. So we really need that information in order to better target our investments to the most vulnerable infrastructure. And we're working with our utilities now on gaining better access to that type of information. There are two large-scale resiliency projects that we're exploring right now. One is a 130-megawatt microgrid project in New Jersey. We're looking at this in partnership with New Jersey Transit and Amtrak, and this plant would actually cover all of path load. And we're also looking at a redesign and rehabilitation of our 110-megawatt cogeneration plant at JFK Airport. And we're looking at the opportunity to do a microgrid design there and possible direct electric connection to the airport, which we do not have now. I'm sure it's not a surprise to you that doing large-scale distributed generation in New York has long been a challenge from a regulatory perspective and from gaining the support of our local utility. But changes in the regulatory landscape that are evidenced by the New York Public Service Commission's Reforming the Energy Vision will likely facilitate distributed generation and microgrid projects, which is exciting. But at the same time, sort of in the near term, there will be some market uncertainty. There'll need to be some serious structural adjustments to energy markets in New York, and we need to rehabilitate this plant in the next 5 years. So navigating that environment will be a challenge in the near term. At the same time, we think that this JFK project could be a good test project for the new market conditions, and we're hoping that we could gain the cooperation of the necessary entities to make that a success. We're also working with Sandia National Labs on some of these microgrid projects and looking to see how a project at JFK could be replicated at other airports. And that would improve the international aviation network and its ability to maintain the flow of goods and services globally. So I hope some of these remarks provided some insight into how the Port Authority views energy, our energy programs, and some of the concerns of a large transportation organization. And also has shown that energy is figuring a lot more prominently into our business and continuity planning. So I thank you all for your attention and participation today. And with that, I turn it over to Kristin Barbato and the panel.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Kristin. And thanks to New York Energy Week and EnerKnol and everybody who's sponsored. This is a fantastic week. I don't know if you've been here last year. This is the second year, as Emily said, and it's grown even bigger. So it's really nice for me to be part of it in both years and to be part of this fantastic panel. We're going to talk about transportation and energy today. So before we get going, I thought I'd introduce myself, tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from, and also introduce the speakers, and then they'll tell you a little bit about themselves and what they're doing. So first, my name is Kristin Barbato. I'm the Vice President of Customer Energy Solutions at the New York Power Authority, NYPA, as you probably know it. And it's very interesting for us to be part of the transportation and energy event today because we actually have had some recent events and announcements regarding our work in this area. We just did some installs of charging vehicles at the Albany Airport, and we have some other exciting things that are coming up in the near future. You may have heard that Tesla just made a big announcement about having a facility in upstate New York and Buffalo, so that's fantastic. So things are moving, and just wanted to see how we can talk about some of the issues that are germane to what we're experiencing on an everyday basis. I think having this event here at the Port Authority is especially great for us because it's a fantastic example of exactly what Kristin and her team are doing at the Port Authority to understand the issues and tackle them for energy and transportation. And I cheated this morning. I took a look at what EIA said about energy in the transportation sector. And to paraphrase their summary of what this means, is basically they say that energy use in transportation is the energy that's consumed by moving people and goods by many different venues or methodologies: road, rail, air, water. So, and that's effectively what the Port Authority does. And our panelists today are going to tell you about some of the innovations and the work that they're doing to help in this regard and even move some of these innovations forward faster. So, I also wanted to make note, if you hadn't noticed, that the people who are here from the Netherlands, I think it's especially interesting and very nice and timely that they're here today from Amsterdam, visiting us here in New Amsterdam. So, thank you for that. So they'll tell us a lot about what they're doing in this realm. With that, let's get started. I'm going to introduce each of our panelists, and then they can tell you about them. We'll do probably about 20-30 minutes of moderated Q&A, have this discussion up here, and then probably about 15-20 minutes of your Q&A. So think of your questions now as we're talking. So first up is Auke Hoekstra, who is a strategic energy transition from Alliander. Auke is a researcher at the Technical University of Eindhoven, a strategic consultant to the largest Dutch grid operator, Alliander, who's a sponsor, and a program manager at ELAD Foundation. His area, how am I doing? I'm not Dutch. His area of expertise is electric vehicle charging infrastructure and the synergy between sustainable energy, smart grids, and electric vehicles. Perfect for this week. In this work, he predicts and simulates future trends with the aim of minimizing the cost and maximizing the speed of transition to sustainable energy. So thank you for your remarks. Todd Hynes is not next. Hold on, Todd is right there. Is the founder and president of XL Hybrids. It's a private company which makes hybrid powertrains for commercial fleet vehicles to advance the commercial fleets into this realm of electric transportation. He also is a lecturer at MIT, where he got several degrees, and here he teaches a graduate course called Energy Ventures, which brings together engineering, science, business, and policy students to form new energy companies. He's based in Cambridge there. Next is our New York City resident on the panel, Jeremy McCool, who is the founder and CEO of HEVO Power, an acre tenant company. After Jeremy served as an infantry platoon leader in the Iraqi war, he pledged and he made a promise to reduce our dependence on foreign fuels. Jeremy founded HEVO Power in November of 2011 with the mission to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles through wireless power technology. Under Jeremy's leadership, HEVO Power has successfully developed its wireless charging and data management solution while securing relationships with multiple global customers and partners. Jeremy holds a Master of Public Administration from Columbia University. And finally, Richard Drake, who is also representing New York State today. He's a manager of research and development at NYSERDA, the state's R&D authority in energy. He's a program manager for Power Systems R&D and oversees a $25 million a year multifaceted energy research program focused on collaborative product development and technology advancement in the transportation and power areas. Prior to joining NYSERDA, Richard was a program manager at the Energy Systems Business Unit of Mechanical Technology Incorporated and manager of the Corporate Engineering Department of Mahasco Corporation. His education is also in New York State. He attended Clarkson College and Union College and has an MS.MD degree and a licensed PE in New York and California. So that is our esteemed panel. I wanted to take this conversation to start with a look at the new potential federal carbon reduction strategy that was recently announced. The potential goal, the goal that was proposed, was 30% goal by 30% reduction of carbon emissions by 2030. We have some experience in that here in New York City, and I thought we'd actually ask you all what your thoughts are about this and how energy in the transportation sector can help with achieving that goal, especially considering that on average, also from my EIA website research this morning, I learned that energy consumption in this sector is increasing on average over 1% per year. So addressing a goal of emissions reduction like this is somewhat of a challenge. How are you addressing these challenges, and what do you think about this reduction goal? Anybody can start.
If you do have a significant adoption of electric vehicles, you're going to be increasing the load on the grid. So, efficiency improvements in buildings might be offset by increased demand from electric vehicles.
Right.
And I think one of the things that is important is if you start plugging in the right way and managing how those vehicles are charged and timing it with things like ancillary services or wind and solar going up and down. So if you have some flexibility managing all these vehicles as they're charging, you can reduce the cost on the grid, reduce the negative impact. And as we heard earlier, it can be pretty expensive if you're putting very expensive, high-power charging infrastructure in place. But you get lots of smaller, maybe level 1, level 2 charging infrastructure. Maybe that is a more cost-effective way of integrating it into the grid. I mean, you have outlets all over the place. It's a little bit different than trying to roll out a hydrogen economy or something where you have completely new infrastructure. The grid's in place, and I think connecting these two together, if done in the right way, can definitely help solve the problem. But it can, you can also, if you do it improperly, it could add a significant challenge to achieving the goals.
Jeremy, how will your data and your charging station help optimize the timing of this issue of not putting further demand on the electricity?
So grid management is absolutely a facet that we've already explored. We have already the built-in capabilities to do site management, meaning that we can balance different charging stations based upon what the electric vehicle needs. When an electric vehicle comes in and that person needs, say, 10 kilowatt hours of charging over the next hour, and another one needs 30 kilowatt hours of charging over the next hour, but they both need to leave at the same time, there needs to be a demand response site management piece there. So we've already explored and certainly have ways to connect to that grid management solution in terms of active grid management. The second thing is that batteries on electric vehicles become storage devices. When you look at renewables as a sourced part of the energy supply, one of the best uses of that energy is going into an electric vehicle because that is a battery storage after all. And one of the biggest problems with the renewables is that there's nowhere to put the energy because people are not using the energy at the peak hours that those wind and solar generation peaks are happening. So electric vehicles actually become very important to that ecosystem when you look at it from a complete solution for a renewable 30% reduction by 2030.
So although you're not subject to this federal proposal, what are your thoughts about how this might help or what your technologies are doing in research?
Actually, I was going to say I'll leave this question up to you guys because we just think, everybody in Europe thinks it's really, really great and we could really use some American leadership here. So we're really excited about it. But actually, they were pitching something that I thought I was going to have to pitch. I'm really excited that I immediately dove into demand response because that's basically why I'm being paid. And we decided that in Holland we could save about $30 billion just in Holland by doing demand response. So all of a sudden you can see how you can get back your cost for your charging infrastructure. But one point I'd like to make, most important maybe, that while we get these government incentives in place, we should also give the government a role in promoting open standards, because that's the only way to get demand response really working. If you have your own solution and the other charging guy has another solution, the other charging guy has another solution, it's not going to work. So government has a role here not only as providing guidelines and stimulus and saying we need to reduce CO2, but also leading the way in terms of standards. And that's why I'm also really excited about Greenland's working with us in Holland actually to promote OCP, Open Charge Point Protocol, something we dreamt of in an afternoon like, well, we need some open protocol, let's put something on the web. And everybody said, hey, great, you got something. And everybody started using it, and basically it's not so much about how great your standard is, but that you have it. So I would say to this, great that you have reduction, but now also look into standards.
As you're introducing the idea of innovation and electric vehicles as innovation, I find it curious that we have in not only the US and some of our older cities, but probably in Europe as well, and around the world, that some of our fleets, our public service fleets, had originally started out as electric, and somewhere, I don't know, a few decades ago, actually converted back over to liquid fuels as their fuel source, and now we're evolving yet again into the world of electric transportation across many different modes. We already know that a lot of our rail systems are using electric based, but what types of innovations are you seeing either now or potential on the horizon that will make this re-electrification of our transportation systems something different? And basically it's a question of maybe it's open standards, or what are some of the innovations that you're seeing that are really going to move this into something that stays?
Just jump in. I mean, that's basically what we're doing is innovation in transportation and taking advantage of very clear trends of reduction in costs for the electric powertrain. So lower cost batteries, global competition, lots of different major companies that are all reducing the cost of battery technology, more suppliers for inverters, other components of the electric drive. And our company is really focused on how do we use the technology that's available today to get the best value out of that hardware in the field. So what are the customers, what are the drive cycles? So we want lots of miles, lots of stop and go driving, low MPG vehicles that use a lot of fuel. That's where there's a lot of fuel savings. And one of the things that we do, this is another area that I think technology is becoming extremely more important and helpful, is on the data analytics side. So we have wireless links to our vehicles, to the system. We can collect operational data, present that back to the fleet managers to tell them how much fuel they're saving or how they can potentially further optimize their fuel consumption or the performance of our system. So there's ways of leveraging data analytics and just clear trends for lower cost hardware. And I think the key is just putting it's the right technology in the right place and using it the right way, whether it's a plug-in, an EV. There are definitely routes that are much more better for full electric, much more better for plug-in hybrids, and much more better for hybrids. So that's kind of what we're living on a daily basis.
Great. Others who are thinking about innovation in this area?
I'll take a step at this. I think probably right now the most critical piece of innovation that's happening in this sector across the board is integration. You're seeing an Internet of Things really take shape. And where we're seeing that really become a focus in our industry is there is a direct correlation to the wants of the end user to want to have this data. It empowers them. It makes, for instance, fleet operators more smart in terms of how they're going to communicate what their electric vehicles are actually doing to their executives to buy more electric vehicles. By far, the need for the integrated solution is there. The demand response is obviously critical to this as a solution. You can't have a big bus that needs 500 kilowatt hours of charge roll up at a station and take that much off the grid. It could potentially be disruptive. So the disruptive forces to this is actually the creation of the integrated solution. I would also say that there's a lot of headway in terms of policy that's finally getting us there too. The OCPP standards obviously are light years ahead of things that are happening in America. Right now, as it's sort of been mentioned, there's a really disfranchised kind of network, a completely broken network of electric vehicle usage in terms of charging in this country, because there's so many different players that are offering electric vehicle charging, but it's closed. So we're starting to see those innovative policy solutions that are going to make this actually work for the entire ecosystem.
I guess I'd agree. I think, building on what you said, I think it's interoperability between vehicles and charging systems. That being said, that factors into maybe one of the larger issues, which is range anxiety from those who are potentially looking to or an EV. So it's education, it's access to publicly accessible charging. So when you're away from home, you can handle it, this is a major component of the Charge New York program. Our goal is to install 3,000 publicly accessible charging points by 2018, which is only a couple of years away. That was combined with interoperability so that someone with an electric vehicle doesn't have to carry 6 or 7 different fobs on their keychain to access different business cycles. you can't use MasterCard or Visa. You've got to have the card or the HEVO that works with the charge point that you're dealing with, and that is an impediment.
So maybe just a little bit about the open standards and how bridging technologies may play in a role.
Yeah, because this is really great. I mean, we're often thinking we're just a very, very small country, right? So we have
how
thinking,
small are you, by the way, in perspective? I believe the Netherlands is the size of Maryland.
About 1/4 the size of New York State.
Yeah.
And in persons about 17 or 18 million. So twice the size of New York City.
And how many EV plugins do you have?
45,000.
We have, I just learned today in New York State, I think it's a little over about 8,200 in the state.
I know someone who lives here for 30 years, and he told me he knows one charge point in New York City. So we've got 10,000 or something about the same area.
Yes.
But what really excites us is that something we dreamt up for a pretty, let's say, pretty small area could now be used in an area like this. So if you make it here, you make it everywhere. We would really love to take what we've done onto an area here also, because you have regulations in place actually that make it much easier to do demand response. We really want, and everybody's talking about demand response right now. And basically what you're seeing is to manage this whole network in a cost-effective way and to bring in renewables and to bring in electric cars, you need demand response. So that's basic. But we may not do that in Holland, and we can do that here, because your regulation actually do not prohibit it as it does. One fine. But the question was, what technology, right? I think the big thing happening right now is that energy and this new startup thingy called ICT, Internet, you know, which is just around for 20 years or something, just beginning to get into the world, are now merging. And that gives us the possibility to make resilient grids. That gives us the possibility to introduce all these new technologies with a great level of customer satisfaction. That gives us the possibility to use open standards to make sure that all the different components talk to each other. So I really think that employing those kind of technologies and combining them with ICT in a sensible and rational, open way is basically the way forward.
Well, you may be a small company or a country, but in size, but it looks like this is a big movement from a technological standpoint. So, one last question I have before I open it up to your questions is something that I like to ask just about anybody that I'm learning something new from. So about this industry, about what you're seeing, what is it that's keeping you up at night? And what should we be doing, either collectively or with new technologies and policy to address it? So anybody who wants to start. Auke?
Well, actually, it literally keeps me up at night sometimes, because I really feel that this generation has got to make it happen. And what we see in Iraq, there's a general who once, one of your generals, Clark, once said, I cannot say we're there about oil, but I can sure as hell say we wouldn't be there if there wasn't oil. I mean, oil is really important, and if everybody starts driving cars, as they will, and they start using oil, we'll have a big problem on our hands. And simply apart from global warming and everything. And on the other hand, we have such a beautiful opportunity. I mean, we can make it cheaper, we can make it better, it's all there, all the components are there. So keeping up at night is basically that we miss this opportunity.
Others?
I'm not kept up about the technology. I'm sure that there are technical solutions. I'm convinced that costs will come down as the market develops and manufacturing scale goes up. I think my largest concern is consistent with Auke's, which is the rate of adoption of new petroleum-fueled personal transportation, i.e. vehicles, worldwide is accelerating dramatically. It's pretty flat in the US, pretty flat in Europe, but the developing world is bringing more and more petroleum-fueled vehicles on the road. So we have to come up with some solutions that work there as well as working here.
Excellent point.
So I agree with Richard in that the technology's there today, it can work. It's all about using it in the right way. And I think one of the challenges that has been hard for us is that there are a lot of things that are technically possible, right? So it doesn't mean that they're financially possible. It doesn't mean that they're going to scale and have a real impact. It's how do you actually get through the noise of the industry. There's a long list of failures in this industry. And there's an extremely long list, and it's a really hard process to get through to show that, why is this solution working, and why is this going to take off when all these other companies have failed. And I think those failures can cause hurt the overall industry if you have just more things to point to. Oh, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. When it does, if you do it in the right way. So that's kind of one of the hardest things that we have to deal with.
Finally, Jeremy?
Well, since I didn't sleep last night, I can speak there's many things that affect an entrepreneur. You look at funding, customers, market. I mean, we're seeing a market right now that's developing at the rate of hybrids in the course of 5 years in comparison to what electric vehicles have done in 3 years, meaning that electric vehicles in 3 years have hit the same marks as hybrids did in 5 years. It's pretty remarkable. It's growing about almost at the double the rate of the hybrid market. The customers are there. So that's a great thing. Market's there. So we can deal with that. The technologies absolutely are getting there. Wireless charging sounds fantastic and magical, but it's old hat technology. We're posers in this game. The real genius of it is Nikola Tesla. And this technology has been used for 100 years. We just figured out a new way to use it and then to integrate it with all these other software pieces, okay? So the technology itself isn't really the issue either. It's that bridge, the bridge between the technology to the customer, which requires a lot of things. Policy, finance, other pieces in there too that we don't even know about yet. And those are the things that keep me up at night, the unknowns as an entrepreneur. I lose sleep because I don't know what I don't know. If I don't want to know that, I guess. I don't want to quote Brunsfield too quick up here. If you look at what's happening in the world today, Iraq just lost Mosul to Al-Qaeda. That's a big problem. You're seeing a potential civil war happening in the country now that we just left, a year and a half ago, that could potentially be detrimental to the entire oil supply chain. 20% of the oil derives from that region, second largest OPEC producer in the world now. It's a big problem. These are the kind of things that are going to project, and I was to say, push forward electric vehicle technologies. Because those kind of crises are the ones that we're trying to mitigate on this panel. What we're trying to do is mitigate those problems that are far-reaching that we can't touch from here. But there are Americans that are in those areas that are being affected by that. And we are, as a secondary piece of that, being affected ourselves. Not only that, but I think in Europe, you guys are about $8 a gallon right now, something like that? No. So we're doing all right. Still, $4 a gallon, we're okay. But it's the unknowns that keep me up. And thankfully, we got these kind of guys on from NYSERDA that are willing to take a chance on entrepreneurs like us.
I think it's a great segue into questions that the audience might have. Thank you so much for your comments. Questions? Who's got some? Gentlemen, that's in the middle there. Could you state your name and your affiliation?
Oh, sure. Daniel Pecoraro, Greenlight, New York. One thing that, Kristin, you touched on briefly is the transit systems themselves. And my question for the panel is, how can we use these energy innovations, which are important in their own right, to help produce better systems for transit and transportation?
One of the major programs that we have going at NYSERDA is working with the MTA, New York City Transit, Long Island Railroad, and Metro North with wayside energy storage, which will allow for the capture of regenerative energy, just like you do in an electric vehicle or in a hybrid vehicle. Put it into storage wayside so that when that train, when the train's going to decelerate. It's at a station, it's at a turn. And so you know where they're all going to decelerate, you know where they're all going to reaccelerate. And the analysis that we've done in conjunction with NYPA and the MTA says that nearly 50% of the energy, the 2 billion kilowatt hours per year that the transit system uses, could be recaptured and used to reaccelerate those trains.
One nice thing to add, since the pod car of Google just became news, right? The self-driving little car without steering wheel. People calculated that if you had a transit system using those kind of things, you would actually have more throughput through Brooklyn Bridge. And that's sort of problematic places as you would have right now.
Drivers that are causing the problem?
No, in that area, I mean, the bus moves a lot of people. Actually, you could use as much people using pod cars like that. And if you would have intelligent cars like that operating together with the grid, you would have a great demand response system going, and you would get a lot of people out of the car because public transportation is less nice in many ways than a car. So, great opportunities there.
Other questions from the Netherlands delegation?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tim Greukniet. I'm from the East Coast Electric, and I help 15 Dutch companies go in the EV and microgrid field, really start working in the United States. And my question is to Mr. Drake. How do we get the technology from the Netherlands to work together with US entrepreneurs and companies and NYSERDA really to speed the market here?
No pressure, Richard.
Yeah. No pressure. Come and see me. That would be number one. No, our programs are primarily administered through competitive solicitations. We go out with program opportunity notices, which define areas that we're interested in investing. So, what the best way to garner NYSERDA support? I mean, we're more than happy to help make introductions, but is to find a partner to team with here in New York that. Together with you, could submit a proposal to us to take on some action. And we work in technology development, primarily, but we are also involved in business development as well. So it can be software, it can be just a business model for charging infrastructure. You're buying GE or someone else's hardware, but you've got a new business model to set it up. We're interested in all of those things.
Can I help out?
Go ahead.
Richard, So, actually, I just returned from the Netherlands from a week in Amsterdam, and it's hard living. Nothing like a city that really incorporates bicycle living into its culture. There is absolutely a gateway and a pathway there. The Smart Cities Coalition that's being led by Alliander and folks like Ron Reinders and Paulus, all these people are working to bring that transatlantic kind of unification back and forward. Tim Krippeniet, one of those guys. So having just returned from Amsterdam and from the Netherlands and all across the country side, all the way to The Hague and over to Rotterdam, I've seen really what's happening on the Netherlands side, and it's really exciting to have the opportunity to potentially be working. So to help out Richard here, his companies are already doing it, Tim. Maybe under the auspices of NYSERDA grant funding, but still the opportunities already are laid into the road.
And I'll just say, as a former official from the city of New York and now with the state, we love seeing businesses come plant themselves in New York. So that does. Other questions? Yes, right in the front here.
Mark Rosenblatt from Fuel Freedom Foundation. It's interesting to hear the panels slant toward EV, but the country has an awful lot of natural gas, and natural gas can be put directly into vehicles through the CNG, which is about a quarter the price of oil. You can convert it to methanol or ethanol and put it into almost any vehicle in the country for about $2 a gallon compared to oil. Can you just respond to sort of the all of the above strategy, which is if you actually really wanted to impact oil, you would do a mixed use GEM type car where you could put any fuel in any car at any time in any combination and react to that.
Thank you.
So I deal with this a lot because a lot of the natural gas adoption is occurring in these larger vehicles, so Class 8 trucks down to some Class 6 or 20,000 pound delivery vehicles. CNG and LNG, mainly compressed natural gas. I think ultimately the consumer market, the smaller vehicles, it's going to be very challenging for natural gas to make sense because there is a significant incremental cost to the natural gas systems. For these trucks, it can be $10,000, $20,000, even as high as $75,000 per vehicle for a CNG system. And the price at the pump for the fuel, at a commodity level, there's a huge spread. As you get down to the actual pump, the spread, depending on where you are, may be 60 cents, $1. If you're in the gas patch, maybe it's $1.50 or as high as $2, which is the savings per gallon. So what we're seeing is that there are certain vehicle types and routes and regions in the country where CNG makes a lot of sense, and that's where most of this is getting, most of the CNG is getting adopted. So I think that's how you're going to see the industry change, where traditionally it was gasoline or diesel. Now you're going to have EV, plug-in, hybrid, and you can have a plug-in or a hybrid CNG truck. I mean, you're still wasting all that energy you use to accelerate the vehicle when you hit the brakes. It's just turning into heat in the brakes. So you're going to see electrification, partial electrification of CNG vehicles. So I think that, looking forward, the big difference is you're going to have different technologies that are going to be working for different end-use applications.
I love this question, but I want to reconstruct. So your big idea is that obviously there's a lot of CNG potential here, right?
No. CNG, like you said, is really only good for
so
large
just
vehicles.
Natural gas itself. There's a ton of natural gas in this.
No, because you really need to put liquid fuels into existing gas tanks to have an impact on oil.
I want to reconstruct this, right? Exactly the same way I reconstructed it for the state of Texas when we put a gravity pulse in. The reason why there's a real aptitude for electric vehicles in areas of natural gas is because that battery is whatever that fuel source is. That can be a wind-powered vehicle, that can be a solar-powered vehicle, it can be a natural gas-powered vehicle, and it's much cheaper to get that power directly from the grid than it is to actually get it at a fueling station. It costs about $5 million to put in each fueling station for a CNG station. Why do that?
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about liquid.
I understand what you're saying.
CNG is a gas.
I understand what you're saying, but it has to be converted.
LNG is what you're talking about.
No. You're talking about methanol or ethanol. Liquids that can go in a gas tank.
I'm talking about LNG, liquid natural gas. Natural gas can be liquefied. Right?
It can be.
It can be, and
let's take the conversation from here, and we can come back if we need to.
I have a nice point maybe to I think that your idea of one vehicle that can do everything might not be the optimal way to go, because if you convert something from one fuel to another, it can cost money. But I think what we will see is that electric vehicles will have a range extender. And that range extender can take many shapes. It actually can take the shape of an electrical range extender in the form of a battery swap or a fast charger. Or a Tesla with God knows how much range, But it can also very easily take the form of ethanol, methanol, hydrogen, whatever. So I think in the future we see a lot of electric vehicles which use either your system or whatever system to extend their range. So I think that's where we're sort of heading.
Thank you for a good question.
After a 30-year moratorium on new LNG, liquefied natural gas dispensing in New York, I think this summer that's going to be lifted. So there will be an opportunity, and it's the Class 8 trucks, the long-haul trucks, that are currently using and interested in converting to LNG.
So some questions on this side of the room. Yes, sir.
This is more on infrastructure in general. So one of the biggest issues, especially when it comes to cross-border collaboration, say with Netherlands, EU, and the US, is the so-called not invented here syndrome. That if you've been following much what's going on with transit policy, for example, and even go to California, PDC and such, over budget, or also those restrictions like Buy American and such. So what do you propose as with first steps? So getting beyond that not invented here impasse. So it's higher cost, inferior quality. That's the issue you're trying to address there.
I got a little confused on the question.
Oh, so it's just not invented here, that impasse. Just that mindset where if you're bringing technology that's already working off the shelf from abroad, say in the Netherlands, for example, and yet, because if
bringing technologies to here.
I think I got it. I think I got it.
Yeah.
It's more or less a question to the Netherlands, I think. So,
Okay.
so I'll take it.
and also for policymakers here as well. Like,
Yes.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one advantage we are very much a trading nation. So if you want to take what we have and rebrand it and say it's American, we think that's fine. If it's business, it's fine. So I think taking something that's Dutch and making it not Dutch, I just got a great example. You got the greatest park here in New York that's possible. You transformed an old metro station into a park. Metro is beautiful. But actually, it was a Dutch architect who did that. Nobody in Holland knows. And actually, we just like the park. So we're not like, we bring in technology, we say it's ours. We just love, guys like Greenlots, for example, they improve on OCP all the time, and now it's theirs as much as it's ours. And so I think not invented here is maybe if you, maybe our French or something, are very proud what to do with it. But Holland is a great way. There's people who like to bring everything to your wishes, no problem.
I just like to add really quickly to avoid the not invented here or kind of picking technologies or I'll do my technical solution instead of yours. One of the ways of avoiding that at a policy level is to try and really get to the core of what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to reduce oil consumption? Are you trying to reduce CO2 emissions? Are you trying to create jobs? What is it at a core policy level? Don't and let other technologies compete, so all the above can compete, but really set your if it's incentives or requirements around achieving that higher level goal, not saying you must do it this way, you must do it with LNG, you must do it with EVs,
and
must
then
do it with hybrids or partials.
And then we're back to the open standards, basically. Right. Let all the different things compete and have open standard. Use ICT to bring them all together. That's basically, I think, what we need to do, what you need to do.
Thank you. Good question. Let's take a couple more questions. Woman in the front here with the red.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Colleen Quinn, and I'm with ChargePoint, and we are an electric vehicle manufacturer and network provider. We have actually about 17,000 customers and 30,000 drivers that use our ChargePoint application. But there's no way we can compete with I gotta believe that your name is fictitious, Mr. McCool. I mean, hats off to being cool and being named that way. I have a question. Yesterday, I was present at the kickoff forum. It was really an amazing sense of opportunity and also challenge for the state of New York, where essentially you've got the Public Service Commission that's going to rewrite the rules for the whole utility approach to energy. You have the head of NYSERDA. You have a new amazing green bank here in the state that has really an opportunity to bring and address some of the barriers, for example, in financing and other issues. And today we've talked, a little bit about some of the challenges, whether it's demand charges, getting financing scaled in the state. One of the things that I've observed in California is that the way that they have really looked at the whole, the atmosphere or the collaboration in the state is the state really stepped up and created a roadmap. And the roadmap directed CalISO, directed the Public Service Commission, directed the research dollars on behalf of moving EV adoption in the state. And it just strikes me that New York could really benefit from a road mapping effort. And I wonder if, Richard, because you guys really sit on top of, I think, now that the Green Bank is housed in NYSERDA, obviously you have a close tie with the commission, and certainly the research that you guys have done have, been very impactful in moving technology. Is there any effort, or do you see any effort to really do that kind of road mapping in New York?
It's underway.
Great. What's the what's the time frame and how's it being? Because one of the things that they did in California, which I think was really important, is the governor had a summit, and there was stakeholder input. Everyone had the opportunity. We had breakout sessions. Is that the kind of thing you envision?
I think it's going to be done, led by the governor's office, but also in conjunction with this recently signed multi-state MOU to advance and collaborate on the advancement of zero-emission vehicles in essentially the Northeast in this case, although Oregon and California. So that combined with setting the principles that we're going to work with, as well as securing some level of funding, which just actually occurred last week when we were able to get some RGGI funds dedicated to the Charge New York program. Between those two things, I think we have an opportunity to put a roadmap in place and some resources behind implementing it.
And so we'll get one more question, so we'll go to the back of the room since we haven't in a while. Oliver, if you have a question.
Hi, my name is Oliver Guinness. I'm an investor with ClearPoint Ventures. We invest in startups and sort of clean economy and sustainability companies. Over the last few years, we've seen a lot of business models that are really dependent on incentives and policy and so forth. And rightly or wrongly, I think the venture community is fatigued by these business models. Some of you guys have touched on cost, and Todd started talking a little bit about the specifics, but maybe you can each talk about where you are in the cost curve as it relates to those types of vehicles you're working with, and sort of really what is the value proposition to customers at the end of the day. Because if it's 4, 5, 6+ years out, it's challenging to invest into from a venture standpoint, and yet we obviously want to see new technologies come to the market. And so understanding that side of things would be helpful.
I'll jump in with where we are today. I mean, we're selling hundreds of vehicles to major companies without relying on subsidies or incentives. Our system costs between $8,000 and $10,000 depending on volume. It can create about $25,000 worth of value over the life of the system, so it depends on how long they're using the vehicles. And that's really targeting the segment of the fleet where the economics makes the most sense. It's mainly driven by miles driven. So as we get our volumes up, we'll be able to lower our costs further and sell the vehicles customers that maybe drive 10 to 20,000 miles, not 20,000 plus. But to put that in perspective, I mean, I mentioned the pricing for some of the CNG incentives. For commercial fleet vehicles, it gets very challenging once you go full electric. You're looking at $100,000 incremental cost, so it's a huge cost premium, and even that level of system that has a 140 kilowatt hour battery pack, or even larger in some cases, can't necessarily meet the operating requirements of the customers. They've had customers that have handed the keys back to for a free EV and just gave it back saying, I can't make my route on this, I'm doing 200 miles a day. So I think there is a place for electric vehicles in the commercial fleet market. It's just going to be the lower mileage vehicles initially. And they kind of work its way up as the cost of batteries go down. So the cost of batteries is still a huge challenge. The upfront cost is very significant. That's one of the reasons we have a very small battery to avoid a lot of those costs.
Just one of the reasons I stepped into this space, because I thought it was so great that prices were coming down so quickly. So the battery pack he's talking about was $1,500 a kilowatt hour when I stepped in 4 years ago. It's now $300 to $400 a kilowatt hour. You can imagine that makes a huge difference, and it will go down further. But there's a lot of business models that already make sense without subsidies. Actually, also interesting maybe for this mayor, but really bring costs down for citizens and improve resilience. Because of course, improving resilience is also worth money. We're spending a lot of money to improve resilience, and demand response programs are already a great way to make money. The only thing is we have to bring this business ecosystem together so that people who actually make money from it pay the people who actually make it happen. And right now that's not the case. So I think people with a business model that says, I'm going to make Con Edison pay a lot of money to me, for example, and they're going to make even more, you should pay attention.
So it sounds like, thank you all very much. It sounds like the policy models and the business models are things that not in conjunction with the technologies,
yes,
which will help address some of these concerns. So anyway, I think with that is really our last question, so we can get you out and networking and chit-chatting about this fantastic topic. But thank you very much for attending. I appreciate all your time.
Yeah, no,